Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, the state of the biosphere, the state of the planet, and it doesn't look good. Excuse my absence yesterday. It was just one of those days when I couldn't even carve out enough time for a video. Things somehow spin out of control. Anyways, I'm back. And thank you all for all the comments and discussions on the last video. Obviously, the title, the headline, the title of the video was an eye grabber, otherwise known possibly as clickbait. I don't know. I don't really pay attention to the title. Sometimes, I put whatever. I put a title that corresponds to what the video is, but I guess in the past I used to sometimes think about the titles and make them more, enticing or, scary or whatever. It's just, it's a thing. But it does have its, merits, I suppose. I got a lot of comments and a lot of views on that video. So thank you all for joining in the discussion. Sure, the merits of the timeline could be debated for sure. As I said in the video, I believe the timeline might be correct, and I believe it, pretty strongly, but who knows? I really can't. It's a shoulder shrug. It's a, hands in the air. It's a crapshoot. Who knows? As I've said in previous videos as well, I've been watching YouTube videos and reading articles for years and years about, the end of the, peak oil and the end of the economic system, and it's all going to crash this year. And, we've heard it since, pre Y2K or pre, whenever the rapture was supposed to be, or pre 1984 even. I remember that. Oh, when the year 1984 came, a lot of people were like, oh my God, what does it mean? What, is the world going to turn into this dystopia pretty soon? And, it took a couple of years, but we're definitely headed in that direction if we're not already there yet. Anyways, I had over 300 comments on that video, so thank you for being a part of it. I'm going to read this article from way past what the fuck. This is Michael Campy. Has a new blog post, and I'm going to read it for you, and I'm going to link it for you. This is called Civilization Anonymous. My name is Michael, and I am an addict. I have been addicted to industrial civilization for over 60 years. As an addict, I could not stop drinking from the seemingly endless fountain of available goods. Even when I realized the planet that we live on is going to die, I could not stop. Even though I knew that my behavior was contributing to the extinction of all life on Earth, I could not stop. Man, even knowing that everything we know and do would soon come to a crashing end, I could not stop. I knew, as sure as the sun would rise tomorrow, that I would participate again. This is the horror and the hopelessness of being addicted. This addiction, as ugly as it is, will be with me until the very end. There is no civilization anonymous, and there never will be. From the moment I was given my first shiny toy to the present, the addiction has been fostered and enabled by everyone in my life. The first object handed to me by the enablers that were my parents began the indoctrination, and with each passing year, the addiction was fed by the relentless onslaught of advertising and television and movies and my friends and their parents and the teachers at my school. We are all, without exception, addicted to this culture that is killing the planet, but we will not stop. We know that we know what we are doing, but we are apparently helpless to combat it. Everyone who is in a relationship or has a family or people that depend on them will attest that just walking away is not an option, but the situation we are in dictates that walking away is the only option. Whoa, this article is like really striking at the heart of of many things, but I hadn't had a chance to read this until right now. This addiction follows a path that anyone who has ever drank or used drugs or smoked will recognize. There is an introduction. Want some candy, little boy? There are the first tentative experiments during which our bodies and minds recoil at the taste or the thought of this new drug, and then there is acceptance. Despite knowing better, despite the ugliness, despite the horror at what we are doing, we continue. The addiction is transgenerational. We come from a culture of addiction. Our parents, their parents before them, and our children after us. I'm writing this on a computer. I spend a lot of time on the computer, binging on Netflix, watching movies, reading emails, and usually I don't spend that time thinking about the impact that my actions are having. I'm currently watching Shameless on Netflix. It is about addiction and how bad behavior is inherited or passed on. And not once did I think about my own inherited bad behavior. We exploit and we steal and we destroy. Those things are a vital part of our culture, but I would guess that almost no one spends a lot of time worrying about where all of this comes from or who had to sacrifice their homes, their health, and oftentimes their life to keep our magical world alive. As with any addiction, this one comes complete with the moments of awareness, a split second when we see how bad it is or how deeply we are involved, but it is not enough to stop us. A few years back, and this may still be a thing, everyone was talking about their carbon footprint, yes, and how they were trying to minimize their impact, but no one was talking, and they were still not talking about the exploitation footprint. I was hanging out at a farmer's market once and got into a conversation with one of the apparently intelligent about our impact on the planet. She regaled me with stories of her own efforts, how she planned to reduce her impact by 5% this year and every year after that until she reached carbon neutral. After listening patiently, I asked her about her exploitation footprint, which I explained was the impact that her daily life had on people and the earth in faraway places. I told her to make a list of everything that she does each day, and then to take that list and find even one thing that did not depend on taking from somewhere or someone else. Then, being the kind soul that I am, I told her that I would save her the trouble of going through the exercise, as nothing she did in the course of her day would be possible without exploitation. An addict is an exploiter. An addict takes from others to feed their addiction, and all of us, being addicts, won't stop. All of us will continue on until the last of us are reduced to a pile of ash. Wow. Amazing stuff from Michael. Thank you. I'm going to link that below, and I hope you all enjoyed that. I really did. And this strikes at the heart of why it's so difficult to turn around what we are doing, because we are programmed. We are programmed from birth. We are programmed every single day to live this way, that this is just normal, that this is just what we do. And if you don't do that, you're weird. And you're way out there. And like, I don't know what's wrong with that guy. Like, he doesn't, buy things. He only, he doesn't wear, new clothes all the time. He, wears like old clothes all the time and rides a bike around town and grows his own food. Like, takes cold showers, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on and on. If you live outside of the way that everybody is supposed to live, then you're like a little bit strange. And then it's really hard to like negotiate the world or navigate in the regular world, right? You have to kind of like navigate a whole different world. Many of you already understand this and know this. I could go on and on about this article. Yeah, we are absolutely brainwashed to live the way we live. And if we're actually going to fight climate change, we're going to have to deprogram ourselves. We're going to have to decompress, mass therapy, mass deprogramming would be needed and would be advantageous to all of us. I urge people that work in the mental health field and the psychiatric field and the marketing field to think about how would you deprogram people from living this way? How would you, start telling people this is not how you do it. Possibly this is how you do it. Anyways, I'm going to move on. And I wanted to read this article from the Huff Post. And this is very interesting because of what I have been stating about candidates and climate change, presidential candidates. Bernie Sanders calls climate change the biggest crisis of all and fiery rebuke of Trump's speech. So obviously Trump had his wall speech. Mr. President, we don't need to create artificial crisis. We have enough real crises, the Vermont senator said. Senator Bernie Sanders called climate change the biggest crisis of all in a fiery rebuke. President Donald Trump's televised address Tuesday night meant to drum up support for funding a U.S.-Mexico border wall to reopen the federal government. It is absolutely complete bullshit. The border wall, the crisis. Although this crisis seems to be a thing that's happening all over the northern hemisphere and first world nations. This has been going on in Europe for a while. The climate or the crisis, the immigration crisis or not crisis, the scare, everybody's like, oh my God, brown people help, and then we hear a lot of stuff about, how terrible things are because all these people are migrating. It's a humanitarian crisis. People are migrating because they don't have food, because they're trying to get away from oppressive regimes, from crime. I've spoken to two people from El Salvador recently, two random people, unrelated, telling me about how, well, one was a woman, and I guess she had family in El Salvador and her father died, and she was like, I can't stay here anymore because people are like watching my house and they're waiting to come, whatever, get what they can get from me, and do, what they will with me. So she was like, I'm out of here. I'm moving to the United States. Another person I talked to, maybe I told you all this story, was a beef farmer in El Salvador. He lived in the United States, but ran a farm. I was a little bit like, okay, ran a farm in El Salvador, but he spoke about, just walking down the road, how you could just be robbed. Everybody's packing guns and you don't know who has a gun and who doesn't have a gun, and you just don't know if today is going to be your last day. So that's what people are escaping, those kinds of conditions. And you would want to escape too, I am sure. Anyways, whatever. Not whatever. That's what it is. But the Vermont senator and likely 2020 presidential, let me go back. Speaking shortly after Trump's primetime Oval Office speech, Sanders listed the 30 million Americans without health insurance, the millions of senior citizens in desperate poverty, and the 40 million young Americans trying to deal with outrageous debt as issues meriting a White House declaration of a national emergency. Thank you, Bernie Sanders, for putting a little perspective on this. The Vermont senator and likely 2020 presidential candidate said human-caused global warming should top the president's priorities. Wow. So we have it. Here we have it. Here we have a presidential candidate. I'm Bernie Sanders is zooming to the top right now. If this is what he's saying, climate change should be the top of the president's priorities. And that aligns with reality. That aligns with science. That aligns with the state of the world, is actually telling us that this should be not a national emergency, a global emergency. The scientific community has made it very clear in telling us that climate change is real and is causing devastating harm to our country and entire planet, Sanders said. The Holy Mother of Jesus. They have told us in no uncertain terms that if we do not transform our energy system away from fossil fuel, our nation, our planet will be leaving our kids and grandchildren may well become unhealthy and even uninhabitable in the not so distant future. Wow. He added, Mr. President, we don't need to create artificial crisis. We have enough real crises. Good on you, Bernie Sanders. I cannot overstate. This is exactly the message that we need to hear. Exactly the message that a presidential candidate should be stating in every speech, on every stump, in every newspaper. And let's see how the friendly, the supposedly progressive friendly Washington Post, Huffington Post, New York Times, blah, 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 blue. Let's see how they treat Bernie Sanders when he actually declares. Let's see how much airtime and press time that they didn't give him in the last election. Are they going to do the same thing this time? Anyways, moving on, I'm going to wrap up this video with something a little bit strange, but interesting nonetheless. Somebody, who was it that linked this? I'm sorry if I can't remember who linked this. It's a Jehovah's Witness article about climate change 10 years ago. The Watchtower Online Library. And they're basically talking about climate change, but linking it all to, what God says and et cetera, which is a little, strange and bizarre and all that stuff, but like very kind of bizarrely. Do Jehovah's Witness believe in climate change? I didn't even know this. I'm surprised. So interesting quotes in here. Actually, something that I've talked about before. According to the scriptures, God created the first human couple and placed them in the Garden of Eden, a beautiful paradise. They were to cultivate it and take care of it. God also told them, be fruitful and become many and fill the earth and subdue it. Just think of the marvelous prospect placed before them. So anyways, so sadly, instead of obediently listening to God, the first human pair chose a course of defiant independence or knowledge or technology, which the majority of mankind have followed down to this day. I'm not religious at all, guys. I'm just reading this because it's interesting, okay? The result, rather than cultivating and taking care of the earth, man is ruining the earth on a scale never before imagined. Revelation 11:18. I might have to just go read the Bible and see what the hell they have to say about this, just because I'm interested. Yet we can take comfort in the fact that God's purpose for the earth has not changed. Anyways, whatever, just strangely interesting. I'm going to link this. If you want to look at it, you can. There are just interesting parallels, I think, in certain scriptures or in certain biblical passages that somehow relate to what it is that we are doing as human beings and why we are so messed up and why we are messing up really badly. I'm not saying that has anything to do with God or belief in God. I find it interesting. Some of the parallels. That's all. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Excuse me. Really appreciate everybody who's been contributing to the channel. Very, very helpful. Thank you. If you would like to contribute to this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.